All right, we're back again, and I will take this opportunity to introduce the next topic. And so, for this next topic, we are discussing parenting, and we chose this topic because we realize there's a huge disconnect between our African parents and that raising their kids here in America. And this disconnect results in these kids struggling to maintain a balance between the African culture and the American culture. And then this ultimately ends up affecting your mental health. So we decided to create this space to explore some of the reasons for this disconnect with the purpose of finding a solution to bridge that gap. And with that said and done, I will let Dr. Muthoni dive a little bit deeper into this topic.
Thank you so much, Debbie. This is a tough one, right?
It is.
Yeah, this is always the hardest one because I think that it's at the heart of so much that happens in our communities. And parenting, like I said earlier, parenting can be a protective or a risk factor for mental illness. And I say that with a little bit of hesitation, with the full knowledge that people might hear me say that and think, oh, she's blaming parents. And you're saying that parents are responsible for all of the outcomes with their kids. That is not necessarily true. And that's not what I'm trying to say at all. But I am saying that how we parent helps set our kids up. And it sort of sets the stage for how our children will navigate mental health. I'll leave it at that, mental health. Okay. So there are many approaches to parenting, and there's so many theories about types of parenting. One that I like to talk about is sort of thinking of for immigrants and thinking about our history and what we bring to the table as parents. Many immigrants to desire success for your children. Many people who have immigrated here to the United States, people come here looking for a particular type of success. And our efforts to pursue success mean that we also have particular expectations of our children, and therefore the way that we parent is shaped by those expectations. So we approach parenting in a particular way. We also bring with us a particular kind of impact that is the result of our lives in our original countries. You know, for people from Kenya, for example, I'll speak about Kenya because that's what I'm familiar with. But I think that this is also common amongst people from other African countries or people that have immigrated here from countries, especially that were colonized by the British or the French. We have systems of education that really value a hierarchy, that are very hierarchical in their approach. You have in a primary school, for example, I think of my primary school that I went to, you had the teacher first of all, you had the pupils in the classroom. Then you had a prefect that was sort of the appointed person. I know some schools that have a very tough system where the prefect is almost a mini god, that they have a lot of power within the school system. And then you have your captains. Then you have your house captains. Then you have your teachers. And then you have a school principal, an assistant principal, and a school principal. So we have a structure that's really set with layers of authority and responsibility. And you then go to university and the same is expected there. And then you come to the United States where the structure is a little bit different, where, you know, a school is set up different. You don't necessarily have the same layers of authority, and the community, the school setup, the educational system is not as hierarchical in nature as that which we come from. Parenting is the same way. We have borrowed from our schooling education system the same idea of hierarchy, that in a family you have children, you have younger children, then you have older children who are kind of the bosses of the younger children, and then you have parents. Parents speak, children listen. That's the way it is. Parents speak, children listen, and children do not question what their parents say, or they do not offer any suggestions or feedback to what their parents are saying. We sort of approach things from that perspective. So we have parenting, we have households where, oh, and then even with parents, there's also a hierarchy. You have the father as sort of the ultimate authority, then you have the mother as sort of, you know, a sub authority, and then you have children. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm not here to condemn our approach to parenting, but I'm saying there's a lot that we can learn. Because first of all, when you think about the approaches that we have, to what extent do they contribute to mental illness? What kind of environment have we cultivated in our homes? Is it a place where children can safely discuss and talk about their struggles? If the expectations are really high, so you have homes where you have, you know, when you think about parenting styles, the parenting styles that have very high expectations and high control, high expectations and high control. And then you add to that very little show of affection and warmth. We never hug. We don't say, I love you. We don't show each other that we care. We're really about business. You know what you should do. This is how you should perform in school. If you're struggling, I don't want to know it. I just want to see your report card at the end that you've done well. So we have high expectations. We also have high control. You do this when I tell you to do it. You don't ask this. And in all of these contexts, we're not expressing affection to our children. So we are raising kids who are devoid of affection, and that has, oh my gosh, I cannot even start to think about the implications for mental well-being and self-esteem, and a sense of well-being in terms of how those children grow up and to think of themselves. And then you have the pressure of the expectations that we place upon them. I mean, think about it. It's almost like a pressure cooker that you have created. And in turn, the unfortunate thing that we don't even realize as parents is that that pressure cooker that you have put on your children, you also truly are living in the same pressure cooker, because their failure then becomes your failure. And there's no room for failure for anyone. And so everyone is on this really pressured sort of path that truly breeds mental illness on both the part of the parent and of the children. So we have parents who are, you know, I think I spoke earlier in one presentation that I talked about types of parenting. Again, think of parenting in a continuum. You have parents that have little engagement, that sort of say, oh, you do whatever you want, when you want. They have little control, they have low expectations of their kids. And those are kids that are running rampant on the streets. We certainly don't want that. Children need a structure. Even as they get older, they need a sense of structure and a clear sense of expectations within reason. So a permissive kind of parenting is not good for kids. They are not going to benefit from that. Then you have sort of, then you have on the other end, you have what we call authoritarian parenting. Think about a dictatorship. Think about North Korea when you think of an authoritarian parenting style. Is you do what I say when I say you do it, and no more, no less, and don't ask any questions about it. And Kenyan parents are very much from that approach. It's detrimental to health. It doesn't allow, in fact, one of the things that it doesn't foster independent thinking. Those kinds of children usually, they don't learn to be independent thinkers. And that is why when they go to college here or they go to high school here, they struggle a lot, because they've gotten used to being told, you do this when I tell you to do it, and only then and only that which I ask you to do. And then you go to college or to high school where you're expected to be an independent thinker, to be innovative in your education, and you struggle because that's not what you're used to. So the authoritarian style of parenting is not beneficial for parents, it's not beneficial for kids, whether it's in the parent, in the emotional well-being, or even in the educational approaches. And then you have sort of a middle ground that has a level of engagement from the parents, that you're engaged, you're interested, and that you help your child think through things, you talk, you're open to listening to them, but you also have a degree of authority that your children respect. they look to you for guidance, and that you provide that guidance within reason, that you respect them as individuals that are self-determining, that are autonomous. That doesn't sound like a good word for a lot of African parents. A child that's autonomous is a threat to my authority. It doesn't have to be that way. It actually, when you raise your children well, and you don't have to fear autonomy, because you have equipped them with the skills that they need to survive in the world and to navigate the world. So very important that we are really truly thinking about authoritative parenting, authoritative where you're actively engaged, but you also allow a degree of autonomy to your children. The other piece of that is also warmth and affection. We are social beings. Okay, why is my laptop saying that it's low? I don't understand that. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I unplugged my computer at some point by mistake, so I apologize. That especially male parents, that there's a thought that if you're affectionate with your children, that somehow you're going to mislead them into thinking that they're your buddy. Affection is good. We are social beings. We are created to be social. And so I think warmth and affection is really important. And not just with girls, but even with your boys. It's very, very important that boys grow up in a loving home as well, where they can show and receive affection from their parents and their siblings as well. Other thing that I was going to say, so parenting, parents then, so how you approach parenting puts your children on a path. You provide this space where they feel they can share this with you, or you create an environment in which struggles and challenges are not welcome. And so then they learn to not speak about them. They learn to hide your struggles from you, because then you have created a place where there's stigma in failure. And failure, and I say failure, you know, like when you bring home bad grades, if you're struggling with something in school, that then children are afraid to bring that home to their parents. They'd rather not talk about it because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. One thing that I have to say this too, and people talk about this Mwiko business, and I know a lot of Kenyans here, and I think many African parents will disagree with me. A Mwiko is such a false sense of authority. It gives you a false sense of authority. You think you have control because you have the Mwiko, and you hold your Mwiko like this and tell your kids, Mwiko, Mwiko. Seriously, that just kills me, because we say it like it's a joke. It isn't. There's nothing about that. What it does is that children learn to fear you rather than to negotiate and talk things through with you. And you start that from very early on, and you get, and that just sort of goes all the way through adulthood, even as they get older, that instead of providing a space to talk, I'm really unhappy with the choices you have made in XYZ. Let's talk about other choices you could make. Let's talk about alternative ways you could approach situation XYZ, rather than wave a Mwiko and say, Mwiko, Mwiko. What is that? As a parent, you think you're walking around thinking, okay, I've controlled my kids, I have a Mwiko. And for a child, they're walking around fearful and afraid of their parent, because then they're afraid of corporal punishment. So it breeds this environment again where it's like, I mean, you've built a wall. You have built a wall and not created a space that is safe for conversation. Now, people will differ. I know people who justify their use and say, oh, you don't understand. I understand it. I'm a psychologist. I'm a counselor. I have studied a lot of these things, and I know that there is really nothing positive to be gained from brandishing a Mwiko. Let's find other ways that are constructive. Let's sit down with your boys, sit down with your children, reason with them, talk with them in age-appropriate ways. You know, you won't have a conversation with a 7-year-old that you would have with your 15-year-old, but finding ways to talk in an age-appropriate way with your children to help them understand the consequences of their actions and of their choices. Very important. So the other piece that I wanted to talk about in terms of parenting is you don't have to know everything as a parent. It's okay to not know everything. It's all right to be vulnerable to your children and say, I don't really know what to do. Um, and sit down with them and come up with ways, brainstorm some ideas, sit down, say, let's think about how we can approach this. And that way, so it's a collaborative approach to parenting. It says, I don't have to have all the answers. It says to your kids, I am human and I value your opinion. So sit down with them and talk about whatever it is with them. I think a big thing that parents fear too, if their children are struggling with mental illness, that they think that that says something about them and that it's a sign of failure. And I want to encourage a thinking in our community where that's not the case, that we don't buy into that kind of thinking, that we're saying parents who are supportive of their children, those who talk about mental illness, it just means you're being honest. For many that don't talk about it, it just means you're being dishonest, because honestly, I don't think there's any home that is not grappling with some type of issue one way or another. So we have two kinds of families, those that will talk about it and those that will choose not to talk about it. And those that choose not to talk about it and point at those that are talking and saying, oh, look at them, as if you have your act together. No, you don't. You're just finding better ways to hide that. And what typically happens is that when those kids get older, then it's almost like, again, I use the example of a pressure cooker. You have a pressure cooker and you keep the lid on, and it's going to get to a place where eventually it's gonna explode, it's going to burst. And at that point, that which you have been hiding and keeping under wraps for so long, you'll no longer be able to hide that. So instead of keeping things under wraps for so long, address things as they occur. Have constant, frequent conversations with your children. That there should be no topics that are no-go topics in a home. Because if they are not topics that you can discuss in your home, your children will find other places to have those conversations with other individuals who may not have their best intentions at heart. It's either in your home or it's going to be someplace else. So ensure that you're having those conversations, even difficult conversations that might be somewhat embarrassing, uncomfortable. It takes a lot of courage to admit that I don't know. It takes you being vulnerable as a father. It takes you being vulnerable as a mother to say, I'm not really sure what to do here. Let's find someone that we can talk to about this. Very important factor. I think another piece is feeling as if, this is a part that I talked about, that we measure our children's struggles and successes with a yardstick that we apply to our own lives. I don't know how to, let me try to explain that, I guess. So like I talked earlier about how, a person, many parents who come here, you've really struggled to give a good life to your family. And then you have a child that comes and they're struggling with anxiety or they're struggling with depression, and you're looking and thinking, what is wrong with you? What don't you have? What have I not given you? That you're talking about depression. A favorite thing for Kenyan parents and other African parents. I have friends from South Africa, the Congo, West African countries too. A favorite thing to do is, oh, when I grew up, we had to do X, Y, Z. When I was growing up, we had to do this, that, and the other. And basically we use this to say to our children, you have it so good, you shouldn't be complaining. So what we have done in that instance is taken their issue and made it about us. And that's not okay. It is not about us. So as a parent, when somebody says something, really, really listen and pay attention and say, how can I help? If you don't know what else to say, just say, how can I help? That's all you need to be able to say. How can I help? It says, I'm here, I want to help. How, I don't know, but I want to help. So tell me, and or together, let's figure it out. Discipline and love. So you can exercise discipline and show love at the same time. I think physical affection is always important. Letting your family know that you care about them. It's not enough that you're going to work every day and working really hard. I think a lot of Africans think that if I'm working really hard for you, you know, I go to work every day, I work long hours, I'm taking double shifts, or so this family can have what you need. That somehow your kids are supposed to take that and understand that this is love. We'll talk another day about languages of love. Kids don't necessarily understand that as love. You might be thinking that's how I show my family that I love them, because I'm working really hard so they can have this or that. That is a language of love that you might understand as a parent, but that your children don't understand. So some of the things could be just, know your kids, know your children. What is it that tells them that you love them? And not to always think of it from a perspective of money and that which you provide. A lot of it, it's really about spending time with them, just taking the time and spending time with them and listening to them, going to a school activity, go to watch them perform at something, go watch a game at the school with them. It says, I want to be with you. I want to be in your space. I want to know what your world is like. I want to see your friends and know them. So you're conveying that you care, that you're interested. It's not just about, I'll buy you Nike, Air Nikes or whatever shoes you want. That's, that's one way to think of it, but it's not sufficient and certainly not the only way to do that. When people know that you care, when your children know that you care, it gives you a right. It's almost like it's a luxury that comes with it. Disciplining children. So putting my child on timeout, saying, I'm taking your phone away for a week. If they know that I care, then it's not hard for me to take their phone away for a week, because I have earned the right to do that, in that they already understand that this is happening in the context of love. So if all you do is just discipline, come down hard on people, and they don't have a sense that you love and care about them, your discipline will fall short and it's going to certainly fail. But if you do this in the context of a loving environment, then they will appreciate it and you will have the desired results. So it has to be a good balance. And I'll turn it over to Sherry for questions.
Yes, thank you for that nice talk. I have just one question, and then this is actually our final topic, so we're almost done. So if you just be a little bit patient with us, we're almost complete here. Can you discuss how important it is, how important the relationships we have with our parents are or how important they are later in life when we are getting into relationships with our partners, or how we forge relationships with our friends as well.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That we'll need a day for that. That is such an important thing. Oh my God, that is so layered. I'll just take a very, very brief approach to it. People seek in relationships. So people go in relationships in different ways. One, you're either looking to satisfy that which you did not have in your childhood. So if you were in a family that didn't show love and affection, that you didn't get a sense that they cared, then you're going to be looking for love and affection and looking in all the wrong places. And that's why it's very easy for a person to fall. So, all a guy or a young woman has to do is seem interested in you and show you affection, and you're going to be blown away, because that's not something you're accustomed to, because you've not grown up with that in your life. So you are approaching the world almost from a point of deficit. And so anyone that can satisfy that need in your world, that's what you need. And you're going to go along with them, only to find out that they're not the right mate. They're not a good partner for you. So you overlook red flags. You overlook many things that are saying you probably should think twice. oh, but this person loves me. They say they love me. They are affectionate towards me. So you sort of have cognitive dissonance. You're thinking, you know, they're saying one thing, but they, you know, in fact, that's how we end up in abusive relationships. You have a parent that is here with a muiko and they're beating you and, you know, doing whatever. And then the next moment they're going to turn around and try to act nice. How is that different from being in an abusive relationship, right? And then we are asking, why did she stay with him for so long? Or why did he stay with her for so long? But that's what you were trained to do from when you were very young, right? A person that loves you, that just is easily putting out corporal punishment, that they'll hit you with a muiko, they'll do this or the other, and then expect you to turn around somehow. And because they bought you a pair of shoes, they took you to Disney World, that they love you. You're supposed to think that they love you, right? So when you grow up, then you're going to put up with the same kind of treatment. You'll be with a partner that, you know, that is abusive emotionally or physically. But because they buy you a nice perfume or they do something nice to you, then you're going to mistake that for real love and think that this is someone I really can be with. So that's one. The other, so you're sort of trying to compensate for all of the things that you didn't have in life. And so that's, so that any kind of affection, then you sort of go with, or then you mirror the patterns that you have seen growing up, right? If you're in a family environment, a parenting environment where your parents have been really were abusive, if parents are good, for example, and have this open relationship with their kids, let me focus on positive things. If you have open relationships with your children, you talk openly about things, you're going to do much better in having open conversations with potential partners in life and the kinds of relationships that you choose to go into. That's one thing I have found. I don't know if we have any Nigerians on this call. Nigerians are so much better. I shouldn't generalize, but the many Nigerians I have known, they're really good about training their young adults, their children, to think about the relationship choices in relationships. We don't do that very well as Kenyans, unfortunately. And I know there may be people here from other countries, because those are things we don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about. Like teaching a young girl, this is the kind of man you should be looking for. These are the qualities you should look for. Or teaching a young man, these are the qualities you should be looking for. But it's all rooted in the parenting styles, where we have a parenting style that is, we don't talk about these things. We don't talk about this. So people just grow up having to make up their own minds and learn things on their own. So it's important that, I think that's a really good question, because there is definitely a connection there that we must be aware of. Absolutely.
All right. So Shiro's gonna go ahead and give the vote of thanks. I think that will be, we'll reserve the next few questions after she's given the vote of thanks. For whoever wants to stay for that last part. I know we've been talking for a long time. So I'll hand it over to Shiro to do the last part.
Okay. Wow, Dr. Muthoni, thank you so much. We are so honored that you got to talk about this mental health, which is a huge spectrum. Like, as everyone can see, there's so much to dive in, and the time is not enough, right? Like, the time is just not enough for us to be able to cover everything. But I think I'll just highlight a few things that Dr. Muthoni mentioned, in case some people are joining in right now. She talked about mental health, and that's our emotional well-being, being aware of our emotions and accepting them. And Dr. Muthoni, please correct me if I get it wrong. Feel free to interject. And then mental illness is an aspect of being able, being diagnosed by a doctor or a psychiatrist, and your recommended medication to take care of the things that are bothering you mentally. And she did say that mental illness is, the stigma behind it is, we assume that if someone has a mental illness, like, for example, I had depression, and I've never seen that as a mental illness as to the way it's perceived in our community, because our community perceives it as, oh, there's something wrong with you, or you're actually crazy. I am a high functioning human being. I go to work, I'm able to do different things that anyone else can do. The thing with mental illness is, it's just like how you may have
let me use the simplest thing, allergies. You know, sometimes you have allergies and you need to take Benadryl. Like it's being able to see that mental health and mental illness, it's just what's going on with you emotionally. And once you realize that your emotional part is hooked to your physical part, then you begin to understand that even spiritually you're attached to those things. And I think that is so important for us to understand. Going on to therapy, I love that you mentioned that our leaders, our community leaders, and I know Jeff from Bitendo for Africa did say that, like, our leaders have to speak up and say, hey, if you're having an issue, we just don't pray about it. We go and actually talk to people who can cancel us. So I think that's such a huge stretch of how we can begin to see therapy and not stigmatize it as a thing of like, oh my God, if I see a therapy, what will the community think? It's okay to ask for help. You know, if you think of a child, and I was taught how to ride a bike by one of my dad's friends. And I remember when I fell the first time, I had a wound, and the first thing your parents gonna do is put a Band-Aid on it. So imagine if you're constantly having these emotions that are draining you, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not understanding yourself, you have to seek help. It is okay to not be okay. And I love that Bogwa, who's my brother and my best friend, mentioned that. He said, as a guy, you are also allowed to have these feelings. And again, I will say this, and I will forever be talking for the boy child as well. Men also need to have the space to be able to talk about their emotions, because if men cannot recognize their emotions, it goes back to the parenting aspect that Dr. Muthoni is talking about. You're never going to be able to have that relationship with your child, because when you were raised, you were told, oh, I cannot, you know, I can't have this relationship with my child, or I'm not able to be physically drawn to my children. And I 100% agree with the fact that it affects you as an adult with your relationships. It affects you not only with your friends, even the people that you get married to, the people, your life partners, your children as well. And I'll just try to use a personal example. When you were talking about relationships and the aspect of how like it takes it to the trauma aspect, I think for a very long time, and I've told this to my friends, is that I've always had close male friends in my life because I grew up trusting my dad so much. And so I was very trusted by my father, and my father and I have a different relationship now, but I'm giving an example. But for a very long time, I didn't feel loved by my dad, just because I think I was given so much material things as a child that I truly appreciated for, but I was never hugged. I was never shown emotion to that aspect that affected me. So when I became intimate in relationships, I would not actually believe a guy loved me, because I'd be like, no, like my dad didn't love me, so I didn't feel loved by my own father. So why should a person who I get in a relationship do the same to me? And it became very detrimental and toxic to me, because I didn't realize that I was hurting the other person, because I'm taking out my own trauma to them. You know what I mean? And it's and so as I talk about my experiences here, it takes work. You know, for the parents who are on here, it honestly truly takes work. It's a true testament that if you're on this live or Zoom meeting, you want to change. You have that heart in you that says, I want to be able to talk to my child. I want to build a relationship. And at the same time, to understand what relationships and mental health and seeking counseling, and even how we stop the stigma is by doing this, exactly what we're doing, talking. All you need to do is talk. There's something you said about, I'm asking you how you're doing because it's my business. I care about you. You know, you're my business. And a lot of people are now quoting that on our Facebook, you know, comments about it's okay to actually be honest about how you feel, because more times than none, when we're talking about, hi, Dr. Muthoni, how are you? The fast response, you're going to be like, oh, I'm fine, how are you? And we move on, right? We move on to the next. But if we have to have truly honest conversations in our homes, we need to sit down with our kids, even if it's every single night, and have these conversations of like, okay, how was your day? Like, how are you feeling about this situation? And I think when it comes to discipline, and I could be wrong, when it comes to discipline, you can always discipline your child and let them know why you're disciplining them. Like, let them know, like, hey, this is where I feel like as a parent, I'm beating you because of this, or however you're disciplining them. I think a child picks up so much. And so I'm in awe of Dr. Muthoni as always. And I think the team and I we're truly, truly grateful for joining us here. My vote of thanks will begin by thanking you, Dr. Muthoni. You are amazing. The team and I, again, constantly in awe of you. I want to thank my team, Bogwa, Sherry, Deb, Rachel. You who are watching have no idea the amount of work that has gone into this. We have cried, we have fought, we have not talked to each other. We have, like people normally think, oh my God, it's such a smooth journey. No, like friendships, relationships, especially when you're working with your own families and friends, it becomes really, really tedious because you're learning things about each other. So I want to thank them so much. I am forever indebted to you. Our parents, my parents, I want to thank them. I know they're watching. Rachel's parents, Bowa's parents, Deb's mom, Shetty and I share the same parents. So thank you so much. You've been so supportive. Our friends, I want to mention, quick shout out to all our immediate friends, the people that Rachel said we talk about these things with. I would love to mention all of you by name, but you know yourselves. We call ourselves La Familia for a reason, because when we talk about these things here in front of you, it's what happens behind the scenes whenever we all meet up. I want to thank everyone who has joined in, my friends. I see a lot of families, I see a lot of friends, and I'm so grateful for everyone who's been able to make this possible. I want to give a huge shout out to Jeff from Vitendo for Africa. You've been a great support to us, always sharing our stuff. I want to give a special thanks to my cousin, who's been a huge support of Clear Minds Better Lives financially behind the scenes. Thank you so much. And to anyone else who's sending in their comments, their questions, we thank you. I know there's so many people who've been supportive behind the scenes, and we truly appreciate everything that you've been doing. We see your comments, we see your suggestions, and we're just constantly so grateful for everything. I'm gonna ask the team to come back on just for a short while, so you can see us. I can see some people are joining in, but again, I am so thankful, and I appreciate all the text and the messages that I get. And I think for us collectively here, Sherry here, Rachel with the green background, and Bogwa and Deb, we are completely grateful. We will forever be grateful. And Dr. Muthoni, some last words from you before we sign out. And I'm gonna ask Boa to put on the poll. We would like your feedback while you're on this Zoom session. So before we log out, and if you have any questions and comments at the moment, you can ask them. But there's a poll that Boa just put up, and it's going to be just 2 questions, and just click on there and let us know what helped you the most, and if it was an informative town hall. And we just want to get your feedback and know which topic really interested you. Another thing I do want to mention is our social media information will be after this. After I'm done talking, we're all done talking. We'll have information on how to get to all our social media pages, so please don't log out. We will have the poll still open, going, if anyone wants to keep answering and things like that. But I'll save anyone in the team wants to say their last words. Again, I'm so grateful, and we will have more information coming out. We have 2 more projects, I believe, coming out. We have a scholarship that we'll be doing very, very soon, and we'll announce that. We're so excited to be able to fund educationally to anyone who's about mental health. And another special project, I think I'll leave that one in the works right now because we're still on the work. So anyone else who has something to say before Dr. Muthoni, and then we can close.
I mean, I guess I just will say like one last thing is that just the response that we've gotten from the community has really been a blessing. Like, you guys exceeded our expectations. We couldn't have done this without your support, without you guys affirming us each step of the way. And so I just want to say thank you, and also to our parents. They played such an instrumental role, just getting the word out to their friends and pulling in the parents really to join into this Zoom, and even allowing us to go to church and have like a mini forum to kind of gauge where the parents are when it comes to the idea of mental health. I always say this, we are a collectivism society, like, you know, America is an individualized society, but we live as a collective, and we really can't do this without you guys. And so we're thankful for the opportunity to allow us to do this, you know, with you guys. So thank you.
Yeah, I think I would also just echo Sherry's sentiments, thanking everyone for being involved and joining in and actually sitting in for the entire 2 hours. It's a long time. It's a lot of information, and hopefully we'll have it up like on YouTube later for you to go back and digest. It's an important conversation, and I think by everyone being here, it kind of shows like there's that concern, there's that caring for the community, and we're heading in the right direction, and we just got to keep up with the energy and keep going forward with it. So yeah, but we appreciate the support too.
Yeah, I mean, as everybody has said, we definitely do appreciate your participation. It definitely means a lot for you guys to join in and, you know, allowing us to kind of, you know, giving you the space to continue this conversation. And that shows the willingness to continue to have this conversation, to continue to find ways to break the stigma that is surrounding mental health. And yes, we also like to, again, I'll echo what everybody has said, like thank our parents for the support, our friends, and, you know, let not this be the last time we're having this conversation. Like, let's continue to have all this, you know, open lines of communication with, you know, your friends, with your loved ones, and, you know, let's just keep pushing to advocate for mental health and ending the stigma surrounding mental health. So thank you all very much for attending.
Yeah, and I think to end it all, what I'd like to say is, if any of you watching, anybody at all, if you feel like you don't have someone, if you don't feel like you're comfortable enough to talk to anybody, all of us here on the team are here for you from the bottom of our hearts. If you ever want to talk about anything, if you ever have a problem and you don't know how to go about it, if you need resources and you want us to point you in the right direction, no matter where you live, Google works in our favor. We will look for you. We will search our connections. We will find people to connect you with if you need that. And yeah, just know that we're here for you. Spread the word and continue to have the conversations like we've said. And thank you so, so much for being willing to even be in this space and dive into this conversation, for sure.
Dr. Muthoni, any last words?
I will keep it really short. Thank you. I am just in awe of this team. One of the things I love the most about you is that you're doing something that Jeff talks about a lot. We are very good as Kenyans to, you know, coming together in a crisis. When there's a crisis, we run, and we have GoFundMe pages to raise money. We have money to help with funeral expenses. We do all sorts of things after people have died, right? And yet we have life insurance. Why don't people buy into life insurance or do something that when somebody dies, then, you know, you have a lot of things that takes care of funeral expenses. I know these words will leave in infamy after me, but I tell it as it is, because we're really good about raising funds when things happen, right? But what if we actually spent that time buying an insurance policy, a life policy, before we have to bury somebody? And the life policy is in the form of these conversations that we have. Instead of waiting after the fact and coming together and having all these forums when we have had a crisis in the community, it's better to have 10-minute conversations, 20-minute conversations every week about mental health in our community than waiting till something major has happened and then we are trying to get together to have the conversation. So it's better to do little every so often than to wait to do the big thing after the fact. So I encourage what you're doing, and that's why I think this is really, really important. Before we got on here, I was listening to one of the songs that you were playing by, what are these guys called again? The Kenyan group, the four guys. Sauti Sol, yeah. So I was listening to a song and it said the Swahili methali, usipoziba ufa utajenga ukuta. I hadn't heard that methali in such a long time, but I thought about it. Usipoziba ufa, if you don't seal the cracks, you're going to have to build a wall to rebuild the wall, right? Because your building will fall apart. So what you're doing is kuziba ufa. Let's take the preventive approaches now by having these conversations, create an environment where people can talk now rather than wait to deal with a disaster or a crisis later. So I love the work you're doing. I say keep going. And if you ever need me to step in to talk about anything else, I'm always here to do that. And kudos to you guys and girls. And to all the people that are supporting you. So this is excellent. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Do not log off yet. We'll have some information for you. We know that there's some people who are asking about in terms of getting our merchandise and things like that. So we will have that for you. We'll have that information on the next screen. So do not log off yet. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.